Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Really appreciate you taking the time. And we're going to be learning a little bit about Security Plus, which is a solution that Eperformance offer. So a little bit about the agenda that we're going to be going through. My first off, introductions. My name is Michael Manishan. I'm the Vice President of Client Services here at Eperformance. I'm joined by Divya Ramachandran. She's our lead product owner. So we're going to take you through a little bit about us, a little bit about Eperformance, why you should listen to us, essentially. Specifically, what is Security Plus? What is the solution that we're discussing today? Some of the feature sets and features that are available within the solution. And then we'll dive right into a case study, which essentially is how one of our clients kind of uses the system for their security processes. And then after that, we'll have some time for questions and answers. But as Divya mentioned in the chat, if you have questions along the way, please feel free to kind of drop them in, and we'll keep tabs on them. We'll do our best to either answer them right away or answer them in the question period. So a little bit about us. We as Eperformance have kind of 20 plus years of experience specializing in medium to large enterprise management solutions based off Microsoft technologies. So, focusing in the D365 area, all of the Power Apps now, that's kind of our bread and butter. We promote better practices in personnel security, clearance management, and we're recommended by Microsoft for those that are looking for personnel security automation solutions. Most of our staff, if not all, are Microsoft certified professionals, and we are a Microsoft Gold certified partner as well. So a little bit about the solutions. You can see on the right there, security screening is at the top of the list, but we have more solutions that we offer. Along with funding program management, so a solution called Grant Plus, intake portal. So we have a solution that's based off the same framework that specializes in intake, called Intake Plus, and we have some solutions for clients as well in the field services domain. So those are really the solutions that we like to focus on, but that doesn't we also offer services in the same kind of domain, like secure cloud technology, solution delivery, dynamics consulting, and business transformation. So, we don't focus just on our solutions. We have other services that we offer as well. So what is Security Plus? Security Plus is a cloud-based software application leveraging Microsoft Azure and Power Platform to provide security personnel with a suite of capabilities designed to monitor, manage, and report on the risks to companies, its people, and its assets. So essentially the full kind of start to finish process of security processing. It's an advanced automated solution for security screening and security file management processes, leading to increased efficiency and expedited security review timelines. And then it's designed specifically for the Canadian government and can further be configured to meet the unique requirements of any organization. We'll get into a little bit later on of how kind of flexible it can be and how configurable it can be with little to no code. And then so this is just to go over some primary challenges, the ideal solutions, and the desired outcomes. So some primary challenges are for security screening. It involves a considerable process and due diligence, including security application forms, fingerprinting, criminal record, credit checks. So there's a lot of components kind of all over the place, and we essentially wanted to combine those into one-stop shop solution that simplifies the process, offer some automation, offer some integration with these other components that are necessary. So it kind of simplifies the entire life cycle of the security processing. So it takes the challenge head on with an advanced tool that can essentially be one kind of solution for all the things listed. It can automate security screening and monitor activities during an employee's firm life cycle. And the desired outcome is that it will be able to enable an advanced automated solution for security screening and security file management all in one place, and speeding up the process that it takes to do so. So some of the benefits: rapid implementation. The solution can be deployed and configured in a very quick implementation timeline. Go paperless. So basically, having everything all in one place, as I mentioned before, is the emphasis. So getting rid of other processes and having it all within the solution. Full integration with Microsoft 365. So if you use the Office suite or other Microsoft applications, it can integrate with those very nicely, like CRM, for instance. The third-party integration and capability of using Power Automate. So things like flows and allowing automation and configuration within the system is very flexible. Improved efficiency on security clearance processing time. So it'll cut down on the between systems times, and it can be all done in one place. Easy risk, financial, and performance reporting. So the tool has a very good reporting dashboards, charts, and views, and it can be used to kind of summarize all of the information in a very efficient way. And I'm sure Divya is going to give us a look of that once she's through the client example. And then adapts to ever evolving digital strategies in real time. So as I mentioned before, things change. That's part of life, and the solution allows for change to be implemented quite quickly and easily. And the solution can be flexible when it comes to processes changing year over year within the department or organization. And then user-friendly and accessible. This is a big one, obviously, as well for government, is you want the forms to be very, very user-friendly for external users. You want them to be accessible for people that need screen readers, etc. And you want the system to be, in multi-languages also, and our system is bilingual and can be set up for other languages as well. So that's kind of a brief overview of Security Plus. Now I'll hand it over to Divya to take us through the key features and the client example.
Thank you, Michael. Hello, everyone. What I'll do is first go through a few slides in terms of just explaining some of the key features that Security Plus includes and what it looks like. And then we'll walk through a case study in terms of one of the scenarios that would be applicable for any security screening for a new hire, for example. So just to start off, the system actually has two components. One is the front user facing. So somebody like an applicant who's coming in and has to fill out a form. That's what we call as the personnel security portal, security clearance portal. And that's where they log in. They have an authentication option and multi-factor authentication for that matter. They get their clearance forms where they can fill out the form, submit the forms. They can upload or download documents, and they can also maintain a profile where they can see the history of their information. They have the option to see notifications coming from security officers, and it also provides an option for a digital attestation, so it doesn't need to be done through paper or externally outside the system. And I'll walk you through and what it looks like from the configuration of the portal. The second part of the system is the backend. So this is where the security officer or the approvers of the clearance process manage the entire process, right from setting up the initial case file or clearance form, and then making the decision or terminating, for example, if the employee is leaving the organization, maintaining the security file on that person, renewals, upgrades from reliability secret, for example. So there's a whole due diligence process, and I'll walk you through some examples of that. And then just maintaining the history and the data of employees or contractors, for that matter, in the organization, and making sure that the clearances are maintained throughout the life cycle of the person being screened. So a typical security clearance process, if you are not aware, so usually what happens is there is a hiring official who sets up the initial security clearance request. And as Michael mentioned, we are maintaining Security Plus as a one-stop shop. So everything ideally through the entire clearance process would go through Security Plus. So the hiring official would initiate the clearance request in Security Plus. That would then initiate a invitation going out to the applicant with the link to the portal. And once the applicant sees that information, what they would go and do externally is, for example, go and get their fingerprints to get their criminal record check done, name check, any example related to an external organization. Once that is done, the applicant will get that DCN, fill out the form, put that information into Security Plus and submit the form. At the same time, RCMP can be, the results coming in from RCMP can be integrated into the system so that they come directly into Security Plus. Once that is done, a security officer can do the due diligence on their part and review the application submitted. Also check the records coming in from external third-party organizations, for example, RCMP, but also if there's things like credit checks to be done or background and financial checks to be done from services like TransUnion, Equifax, CSIS, etc. So that's the responsibility of the security officer, and they would do that. Once that is done, if there is a need for an interview, for example, with the applicant for whatever reason, that can also be conducted and recorded in the system. Um, After the interview is conducted, a decision is made, and then the IAM officer can grant or reject a security clearance based on the decisions made by the security officer. Once that is done, a notification will be sent to the hiring official indicating what the decision has been so that they can inform the applicant. And if there are like payments involved. For example, if you want to reimburse the fingerprint processing fee that has been taken on by the applicant, that can also be integrated into the system so that the data is sent directly to the payment system. So this is usually typically how the security clearance process works. Of course, each organization may have its own nuances and processes that need to be followed, which can also be accommodated into the system. Just some key system features in terms of what I had mentioned. So we have the web portal to start with. So it is something that can be configured to be secure using multi-factor authentication. Out of the box, we do provide the authentication through Microsoft Entra through the B2C or the business to customer integration. But it can be extended to use things like GC Key, Google, any other option that an organization would prefer that the end user use. Then you have the option to set up a user organization profile. So typically it's basically an applicant because the organization is your organization that has been set up. It is multilingual. We do have out of the box forms coming in English and French, but if there is a need for any other language, we can accommodate other languages. It is WCAG 2.1 AA compliant. So in terms of accessibility, we do have it compliant in terms of what is needed for AODA. It does operate at a protected B security level. So it is a good system to use for government operations. It has a notification center, which means that security officers can send personal messages to the applicants if needed. It has the option to download and upload documents. So if the security officer wants to send the applicant any documentation, or if the documentation has to be provided by the applicant, for example, identity proof, that can be done through the portal as well. And it is also mobile compatible, so they don't have to sit at a laptop. They can also use the forms through the phone. Typically, we do have it set up for the applicant, but the portal can also be extended to other roles and actions. So, for example, out of the box, we do have the 33023 and 33060 TBS forms set up, and I will show you what that looks like. We have the option for digital attestations. Amendments can be done on the application as well. So if the applicant doesn't provide all the necessary information, security officer can identify that an amendment is needed and send that back to the applicant to review and submit again. And the applicant can also track the status of the application on the portal itself. So from a security officer administrator features perspective, there's a number of different options that are available. First is maintaining a security file on individuals. So if an individual has, like, for example, received a reliability clearance on day one, 5 years from now, they can have secret clearance established. So all of that information, the history is maintained in the security file. It also maintains the expiry of the clearances, if the individual will be terminated or rehired back, all that information is in the security file. So it maintains a history in one place for each individual. As we mentioned already, it processes the security clearances. It can have process amendments to applications. So it doesn't have to be that if the applicant submits, that's it. Everything else has to be done offline. It can be done through the system itself. It has different options. So you can have either new clearances, you want to update a clearance, you want to upgrade or transfer clearances. It has different options. It also has the option, as Michael had mentioned, to integrate with third-party tools. So you have integration option to fingerprinting locations, card readers, HR management tools, data management tools, depending on what kind of integration needs to be established. Security Plus should be able to do that without any issues using the something called as the Power Automate option that Microsoft provides. Then we have the decision management, which we talked about. There is also something that facilitates the security incident management. So if there are security incidents throughout the organization, for example, or individually based on a person, and I can show you what that looks like. It can be maintained within the system, and communication can be sent out to multiple people. Dashboards and flexible reporting allow for organizations to report out on how many people have been cleared on a given day, what kind of clearances are being maintained, how many have been cancelled, things like that. So a lot of flexible reporting options. It allows for management of payments and repayments if applicable from a security clearance process perspective. It tracks expiry, termination, closeout, etc. when it comes to the clearance or the security file of an individual. It does have the option to set up teams and users based on different levels. So if different departments have different permissions that are applicable to them, the system can be set up to make sure that those users have only permissions to see and view certain records. For example, there might be officers who only look at reliability, and officers only look at secret files because of data privacy. It can be set up that way as well. And again, document management, where the documents uploaded by applicant can be viewed, or if you want to upload documents as a security officer yourself, you have the option to do that. By default, we do use SharePoint to maintain our documents, but there are options in terms of, again, integration with other third-party tools that can be facilitated and set up as well. Moving on to the case study. So the background for our case study is assuming that a national government agency has a newly hired policy advisor called Alice Finster, who is going to be our applicant for this scenario. And they have started a position in the claims department for the organization. So a reliability security clearance needs to be initiated for Alice. So the participants in this scenario are usually the hiring manager, Debbie, the applicant, who is Alice, who's the new hire. We have security officer as Felix. We have an interviewer as Leila, and we have the IAM officer as Mark Rochester. So these roles are just for this scenario, but the system has the capability to combine these roles into one person, or even separate out the roles to multiple other individuals or roles that need to be or are applicable to your organization, for example. Let's just start with the hiring manager who has identified that Alice has been hired as the policy advisor in the claims department. And based on the assessment of the new hire, she realizes that just for the job description of policy advisor, Alice will need a reliability clearance. And in order to make sure that Alice has the right clearance, what she does is Debbie starts a clearance request in the system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what this system looks like. So let's just start with a clearance request. So this is the security plus back office that I talked about before. And what Debbie does as the HR manager or the HR hiring official is starts a registration or a clearance request for Alice and puts in all the information applicable to that reliability clearance request. So a number of these fields can be made mandatory, they can be made optional, they can be configured to be different set of fields depending on what your organization would like to maintain and what the history needs to be maintained on in terms of the applicant's information. So that's how the process starts. And then, excuse me, then we go to Alice, who is the applicant. Alice, as the applicant, receives an invitation from Security Plus, which is something that is configured to trigger automatically when the clearance request or the case file is put into the system. Once the invitation is received, Alice can register through the redemption code that is a part of the email. After successfully registering, Alice will open the application form, fill out the necessary details, and upload the attachments for the proof of identification. Once Alice has that information, Alice also needs to externally go and get fingerprints done. So she goes in, gets the DCN received when she does the fingerprinting, and puts that information into the application form and completes and signs the application form. So I'll show you what that looks like on the portal. So first off, Alice gets a notification via email in terms of getting an invitation to the system. So Security Plus by default is configured not to be an open registration. You have to be invited to be able to access the portal. So that is something that is usually set up because open registration wouldn't apply necessarily to security clearances because you have to be invited to apply for a clearance. So that's why you get a redemption code, which allows you to log into the system, register through Microsoft Entra, for example, in this case, and log into the system. So just as a quick note, the email is highly configurable and flexible. We can set it up to be English and French bilingual or English and French separate, for example, depending on the user's language preference. So there are multiple different options. This is just an example of what a typical email usually looks like. Now going into the screening form. So Alice has logged in and registered to the application portal, and she has opened her reliability 33023 clearance form. She started filling out the form with all the necessary information, including the residence and other options. And she has gotten her DCN after getting her fingerprints done. So what she can do is put in the DCN number, for example, and include that information. There are multiple options. As you can see, there are certain fields that are required. There are business rules applied. For example, when it comes to providing the proof of identity, we do say, okay, provide two pieces of identification. As you can see, she's provided one, but if she doesn't provide the second one, for example, she doesn't get to go ahead with the application. So that kind of enables the information coming in and the data coming in to be reliable and also in terms of completeness. All of this information has to be filled in, for example, before the application can be submitted. If there is missing information, the system will throw an error and the applicant will not be able to submit till they have provided all the information. So that makes it easier on the security officer from an administrative perspective for not having to fill out missing information or sending the information back to the applicant to refill multiple times. So that reduces the administrative burden quite a bit. Security Plus by default has been set up with the TBS 33023 and 33060 forms, but they can be configured to be include other fields if your organization requires other information for the applicant to be filled in. We also have it bilingual. So as you can see, you can have it in English and French or other languages as well. So now I have the application completed and submitted. So Alice has completed her application form and she has submitted it. Once it's submitted, she cannot edit it until the security officer opens the application. I also want to show you the digital attestation. So if I open this, um, the digital attestation and consent and verification can be done online through the application form itself, which registers the date time stamp of when Alice approved and agreed to the terms and conditions, and also agreed to the checks to be done in terms of the security clearance. So that way, it doesn't have to be that you have to send out a paper form for attestation, get it back, wait on getting that information back, because that just adds to the time in getting the clearance. So all of this can be done on the portal itself and recorded. And I will show you what that recording looks like in the back end for the security officer as well. So now we've completed the process from Alice's perspective in terms of being the applicant and submitting the form. The next step is for security officer Felix to look at the application submitted by Alex. So he will look through the submitted application and assess whether all the information is provided by Alice, the proof of identity attachments are provided, and then what Felix will do is assess it as complete. So Alice's application is complete. The system will send the RCMP results automatically to the system. So once the RCMP results are received, Felix can go through the information provided. Usually they provide an whether the adverse conditions are a yes or a no. So in this case, what I'm going to show you is there was an adverse condition that came back as yes with Alice. It doesn't look to be too it doesn't look to be needed to be a denied clearance, but it would be good if there was an interview conducted with Alice just to clarify a few things. So then what Felix does is create a record for an interview with Leila, and Leila will conduct the interview in terms of getting the clarification needed. What I'm going to show you is a complete application, but as I had mentioned before, there is an option to have an amendment initiated through the system where Alice has to provide the right information, and then the system sends it back to Felix to continue their due diligence. So if I go back to the system now and I'm logged in as Felix right now, I see that Alice has submitted the application, and it is maintained in something called as the case file, which then includes the security screening form that Alice filled out. And the information Alice filled out is all provided here to the security officer during the diligence on the data provided. They can also see the consent and verification, as you can see, and it also provides the date stamp, which is read only to the security officer in terms of when they agreed to the terms and conditions. They can also see the application documents, which are usually stored in SharePoint, and they can access the document through SharePoint. So in this case, Felix believes that all the information is as needed. They say deem complete, and that sets the form to be complete. So once that is done, Felix then assesses uh, and waits for the RCMP results. So when he sees that the RCMP results have come in, it comes in automatically, and he sees that there's an adverse condition. He checks with the references provided and assesses that an interview is needed. So what he does is he sets up an interview record for Leila to do the interview for the applicant, and then waits for the confirmation on that front. In the meantime, what he can do is he can make sure that he's not this one. In the meantime, what he can do is he can make sure that he does the verification checks on everything else. So he has to provide a timestamp on his verification checks as well as this in terms of being the security officer, just to maintain the history in the system as well from a verification perspective. He can also add notes applicable to each verification check as needed. So I'm just going to complete this and wait for the interview to be conducted. So the next step here would be for Leila to do, she schedules an interview with Alice, verifies the information provided by RCMP, talks to Alice, and then just documents her findings in the interview record for Alice. So if we go back to the case and go to the interview record, now I've logged in as Leila, for example, and as Leila, I set up the interview. I talk outside the system. I talk to Alice and identify what was the conditions in the RCMP results. Is there something to be worried about? And I say nothing to be worried about. And as Leila, I say, okay, let's just, I recommend a clearance to be granted, and I say interview complete. So that sets up in motion the next steps in terms of getting security clearance approved for Alice in the system. So that's also done in the system. And then what Felix goes and does is he would get a notification from Leila saying the interview is complete. He would say, okay, there are no adverse conditions, and he would save the case. And then the next step would be for the decision to be made. The decision typically is done by someone who's going to be approving and making sure that the due diligence was completed. It can also be, depending on the departmental rules, it can also be Felix doing the actual decision making versus having a second authorization on the decision. In this case, for our case study today, we have Mark, who is the approver or the IAM officer, who's going to be identifying that there is a decision pending on Alice's case. He will review all the information provided by Felix and by Leila, their notes, and do a clear granted outcome. So if I go back to the system, I am logged in as um, Mark, for example. I'm just going to refresh my view saying these are the case files awaiting decisions and I need to make a decision on these. So I see here that Alice's file is now awaiting a decision. I open the case and I look at all the notes. I look at if I need to see the information again in terms of Alice's application, I can do that. Or I can just check and make sure that all the verifications are complete. Who's done the verifications, I can make sure that the decision is pending. And if you notice here, it actually shows a timeline of the applications from start to the current state. And for example, the application started yesterday and it's been active for 21 hours. And as of right now, the only thing that's pending is a decision. Once the decision made, it can go into resolve, for example. So this also allows you to see a timeline of where a case is at. So if it's like a case has been open for 30 days, why has it been open for 30 days? It does provide kind of a quick summary in terms of where the decision is and where the case clearance is. In this case, I'm going to be saying, okay, Mark, I have verified everything. I am going to make a decision of granted. And what it does is it creates a clearance outcome for Alice and sets the case to resolved. In this case, Alice's clearance outcome is set. It sets an expiry of default 10 years from today, for example. So that's something that's again configurable. If your expiry needs to be beyond 10 years or less than 10 years, it can also be set to be that way. Now, because the clearance outcome has been granted, the next step is where the hiring official, Debbie, would receive an automated notification saying, hey, Alice has been granted a clearance, but there is a condition that Alice has to also successfully sign the security briefing and protection of mail forms to accept the clearance terms and conditions. That's typically what we usually call as the 33047 form in the TBS guidelines. So for example, we have an email here that kind of has a sample of what that clearance granted email would look like. So Debbie would get an email saying Alice's clearance has been granted. This is the clearance ID. This is the date of the clearance, but it is subject to the applicant completing the 33047 and protection of mail agreements. So Debbie would have to make sure that Alice completes that information before the system completes the entire file. Alternatively, if Alice's clearance was denied, for example. For whatever reason, the interview didn't go well. There are really adverse conditions coming in, and the clearance cannot be granted at this time. It can be marked as a denied clearance. Debbie will then talk to Alice in terms of next steps. So, a next step could be an appeals process where Alice could appeal the decision made in terms of getting a justification on why the clearance was denied. For example, if there was a mistake made or things like that, there is an appeals process that can be initiated from the system as well. And that in, or for that matter, if you do not want an appeals process to be initiated, that is also something that is possible. So there's multiple different options here in terms of next steps if there's a denied clearance, or if there's an assessment that is not completely accurate in terms of the clearance that has been granted or denied. Ongoing monitoring. So there's multiple other options in terms of what can be done through the system. So reporting is one thing. So for example, in Alice's case, for example, if, for example, she changes her address, she changes her marital position changes, or if she has dependents or things like that, that can also be recorded in the system. In terms of just a one individual security file being maintained in the system for the person. So example, if I refresh here, Alice's latest information coming in from the clearance is provided. It also provides the history of the case file, when the clearance outcome was granted, but it can also include a lot of other additional information depending on what kind of information you want to maintain in the system for a particular individual. It also has other reporting options that we had talked about. So we have options to set up out of the box dashboards. So in this case, for example, we have an hiring official dashboard. Depending on the person, for example, if Debbie comes in, she could be seeing a different dashboard versus Mark, who is the approver, could also be seeing a different dashboard. I can also show you a dashboard that is applicable to myself. So I am logged in and I have my own dashboard, which is different from the system dashboard. So there's a lot of flexibility in terms of reporting where you can set up your own dashboards, your own views. So you don't have to rely solely on what the system has set up. And it also allows you to have a dashboard through Power BI. Right now, I do not have that example in this system, but there are options in terms of setting up Power BI dashboards so that you can see different data analytics elements in terms of next steps and what to do and things like that using the tools that Power BI provides. The other aspect to monitoring is renewals and expiry of clearances. So 3 months before Alice's reliability clearance is about to expire, for example, if it is about to expire 3 months from now, the hiring official, Debbie, for example, can get an email saying, please note that Alice's clearance is expiring on a particular date, and if applicable, they should be initiating a clearance process. So the system can send it, for example, 3 months before expiry, 6 months, 1 year, as many times as you need it to be sent, just so that the reminder is sent appropriately to the hiring official or any other individual or department that needs to be aware of the renewal process that needs to be triggered. There's also the option to upgrade. So if Alice is promoted to a role that requires a higher clearance, for example, secret, Debbie can initiate an upgrade process and create a secret form, for example. So I can show you what a secret form looks like. On the portal, as you know, secret has information that needs to be provided at a higher level. They have to provide multiple options. From a TBS perspective, they ask for marital and common law partnership. They ask for employment information, foreign employment. They ask to make sure that you provide the information related to if you're born outside of Canada, things like that. So there's a lot of other information that needs to be provided. We can also set it up to use the 33061. So that's something that has been used with one of our clients, which combines the 33023 and the 33060 together to form the 33061, which also includes information like roommates. It includes information related to providing your professional designations and things like that. So there's a lot more information coming in, and you don't have to get two different applications out to the applicant. They can fill out all of that information within one application itself, which is the 33061. So that is another option that can also be done by the system. And once that is done, for example, if Alice decides to leave the organization tomorrow, the security file can also maintain the termination date in terms of that information. So if I go back to Alice Finster's security file, I can set up the termination date here as well if needed to make sure that the security file is closed on, and if it needs to be reopened, if Alice comes back to the organization at a later date, it can also be reopened and maintained at that point in time. Few other features, additional features that I wanted to talk to you about today is it can also do at this point in time, the system can do enhanced reliability. It can also do secret, but it can also be configured to also do top secret. So if your organization does top secret clearances, we can also set that up in the system. It can initiate updates. It can do transfers, reactivation of closed clearances as well. Manual entry. So I showed you a portal entry form. You can also do manual entries. So for example, if the applicant does not have access to the internet, is living in a far off area which doesn't have internet options available, or if they cannot fill out the form online for whatever reason, the security team can do a manual case file on behalf of the applicant. It does require a little more administrative work because you do have to get the applicant to sign through email or something like that, but or by regular post, but it does have the option to maintain that in the system as well versus having to maintain that separately in a different on system or using paper or Excel files, for example. Another option is security incident management that I mentioned. So I have an example for you on that. So an incident could be any kind of incident that the organization is dealing with in terms of security. So for example, Martha had a security breach and they had to fill out some, they filled out some forms and sent it out, which shouldn't have happened. So it caused the security breach and it was included, put it as an incident in the system. And then it also allows you to identify what measures will be taken to make sure that the security incident has mitigation factors. In this case, for example, COI forms have been published to Martha. She has to sign the forms, and once that is done, the security incident could be closed. It also allows the system to send out notifications. So as soon as, suppose example, a critical incident has been identified, and an email can go out to all the internal users in the system to just make sure that they are aware of something that has been identified as a security breach. So multiple different configuration options there. Incident management also has multiple different options to configure these fields as well. This is just an example of what an incident could look like. Other elements that I wanted to talk to you about, and we kind of talked about in previous slides as well, is the option to integrate with virtually any digital process or device. It allows for integrations with GC key, for example, for authenticating the external users or applicants. It allows for AD Connect or the Active Directory that allows for identity and password management and single sign-on. If you have document storage through GC Docs, that's also an option. HR systems can be integrated to make sure that the data flows between the systems. Oracle database systems that also maintain separate data options. It can be integrated with that, and then different security tools that are used like Equifax, TransUnion, RCMP, Gambit ID services, and also maybe something like Site Secure, which is used for protecting websites from cyber attacks. So multiple different options. It would depend on what kind of integration needs to be established, what options are available, what kind of APIs or tools that need to be used. But there's a lot of flexibility in what the system can do. The next element I want to talk to you about is what we are looking into in terms of improving the system. So, as you know, AI is a big thing in this day and age, and that's something that we are exploring a lot internally in terms of how we can better utilize AI within Security Plus. So, for example, we're doing a lot of research and designing around pre-populating the case files from emails or PDFs. So, in cases where I mentioned that you would have to fill out the form on behalf of the applicant, maybe the AI can read through the email or PDF that has been generated and populate the case file in the system automatically. So we're looking a lot into that automatic processing, and also assessing clearance forms and case summaries automatically to kind of give a recommendation on whether a clearance should be granted or denied. It also, what we typically use is Copilot that is available from Microsoft. So Microsoft has a different set of features. So we're looking into creating more forms, application forms, web pages, tables on the portal or directly into the system using Copilot, categorizing different information using complex whiteboards. So that's something that we're working with internally in terms of helping our implementation team in getting more out of using Copilot versus having to manually do coding from scratch. There's also options in terms of setting up chatbots and helping with user queries on the portal, for example, or even security officers, so that feedback can be generated on the spot through the chat versus having to get an individual involved if it's something that can be utilized in terms of getting that automatic admin processing down to a minimum. Um, I would like to open the floor for questions at this point in time. Does anyone have any questions today? Kim,
Great,
yes.
thank you. So I apologize because I missed about the first 5 minutes or so.
Okay.
Is this application tied to the OLIS portal system, and how does it seems like you're kind of cutting out PSPC? So how does that work?
Eric, do you want to take this question?
Yeah, I believe the question was, so the OLA system, the question was around the OLA system, and does this replace the OLA system? This system is really targeted more at departmental staff, not so much contracting. So the OLA system is for contractors that are working for basically getting clearances for the federal government. So this is more for a departmental solution for staff that are going to be working for the department.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Jonathan?
Yes, thanks for the presentation. Regarding cost, is there an upkeep, and what's the cost to implement the system?
Yeah, so the cost would depend on the number of users. So it's a SaaS solution. So
Okay.
depending on how many, there's a cost per user. And if you as a follow up, if you provide us with some information on the number of users you have and the number of security clearance applications that you go through in a year, then we would be able to give you a rough order of cost.
Can I give it right away, or you need some time to dig for information?
Yeah, probably better if you, I believe you have our email. If you just want to send us an email, we'll get back to you right away.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Any other questions? Yes, Crystal.
Hi there. Thanks for the presentation. I'm just curious to know, how long does the portal remain, like, so initial to the applicant, like how
Okay.
long does that portal remain open to the applicant?
So we can configure an expiry date. So if you want to set it up like, okay, the applicant was invited to the portal today, we can set it up for 14 days from now, 2 days from now, a month from now. It depends on your departmental rules around that. So once the expiry date is passed, they would not have access to the redemption code and they wouldn't have access to the portal. So they would have to come back to you and say, sorry, I missed the clearance window. Can you please restart the process? Or they would just not be cleared. They would just not continue with the process.
Okay, perfect. Thanks so much.
No worries.
And sorry, just while I'm here, is it the CSIS results would also go through
yes, it would be
the
very
portal,
similar.
everything?
Not the portal necessarily if you don't want it to. So the CSIS results would be with the security officer, right? So we could set that up that the CSIS results come directly to the security officer and into the system, similar to how RCMP would be. And that information can be set up in the system in terms of whatever information that CSIS is providing you. So I think it provides non-traceable ID. It provides a certain set of information in terms of the steps that they do and the notes that they provide. So that would be for not on the portal, it would be in the back end.
Okay. And would there be like additional protection for like those secret and top secret clearances,
Yes.
let's say? Okay.
Yes, we could set up like so RCMP for one of our clients, we have encryption and decryption rules, for example. So the information comes in encrypted through a private key that they use, and then we decrypt it through a public key. So there's a lot of rules around that in terms of the information that is integrated and coming to the system or going from the system for that matter.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
No worries. Anything else? Yes, Jonathan.
Can I ask a second question?
Yes, please.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Thanks. Regarding renewals, I think you touched this a little bit earlier, but will it be sent automatically to the employees, or we would have to have an agent send the reminder to an employee to proceed to the...
It depends on your department rules. So if you wanted to, like for one of our clients, they would prefer that the hiring official or the hiring manager get it versus the applicant. So it depends. If you want it to go directly to the applicant, it can definitely go through.
Okay, so we can set up this on our hand.
Yes,
Okay.
for sure. Yeah.
And regarding the access, we can have, I guess, a super user, a manager, and the
Absolutely.
operator, something like
Yes.
that with different permits.
Absolutely. So the system administrator, there's always one typically because you do want your technical changes to be monitored and looked at. And then we have something called as business units, teams, and security roles. It kind of flows as a hierarchical structure. So you would have, for example, a manager, and then below them, they would have permissions related to security officers. So it depends on the hierarchy that you want to set up in the system. But yes, there's flexibility in terms of setting up multiple different teams and roles and permissions.
Okay, awesome. And I have a follow-up question, if I may.
Of course. You
Is there
have
been...
5 more minutes, so.
Yeah, but I see other colleagues on the call, so I don't want to take the whole spot.
Go ahead,
But
please.
everybody seems quiet. Okay, perfect. I'm not sure how to say that in English. Is there been a TRA done on the solution by any departments?
Yes,
Okay, yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
for sure. It operates at protected B level, PBMM, and there's been numerous assessments done. So, and we as part of our service provide a security requirements traceability matrix for protected B operation.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Anyone else? And as a follow-up, like if you don't have questions right now, you can always follow up with any questions to the information provided here, and we'd be happy to give you answers as per your questions. And we will also be sending a recording of this session today and the slide deck presented to you so that you have that information on hand. I'm going to say thank you everyone for attending today and have a great rest of the day.
Merci, bonne journée.
Bye.